Hi, everybody. Today we are going to do a histogram using Excel in order to do that. Now, a histogram isn't just a graph, it's a data analysis. So in order to make a histogram the easiest and quickest and most accurate way, you're going to make sure that your installation of Excel has on the Data tab, it has the Data Analysis Toolpak. Right? If you don't have the Data Analysis Toolpak, you need to install it as an add-in from options. All right, most installations have it, but you may have to do an add-in. So you're going to go to File, you're going to go to Options, you're going to go to Add-ins, and you're going to paradoxically go to Excel add-ins at the bottom and go, and then you're going to say, I want my analysis Toolpak. You're going to check off this checkbox and say okay, and it should pop up here when you go back. So if you start at home and then go to the Data tab, you should have Data Analysis now. All right, and you can use that for all kinds of other fun things. All right, but remember, a histogram is an analysis. It isn't just a graph. What's it going to analyze? Well, it's going to take all of your observations, and these are observations on a continuous x-axis, and it's going to chop that x-axis into equal-sized increments and count up how many of the observations fall into each of those increments. All right, so we want to open the Data Analysis Toolpak. In order for Excel to most easily and quickly do your perfect histogram for you, you want to have all your data in a single column. Right? If for any reason it isn't, stop and then cut and paste it so that it is in a single column. And you want to just highlight the data values when you're doing that. So we're going to click on histogram for our data analysis. The input range is the cells of the Excel table where the data you want to make the histogram of. So you want to click on the first cell and highlight all the data you want to include. Notice that it starts putting in a cell address. So B3 is the cell. We can either highlight the cells or we can type into this window B3 colon, our last cell. I'm just going to highlight because that's easy. So I'm going to scroll down. We have a nice big data set for this. All right, my last observation is in B53. So notice the input range says B3 colon B53. And you can ignore these dollar signs for now. All right, I'm going to scroll back up to the top of my data set. Now, bin range, we're going to skip for now. Leave this blank. All right, Excel will make your histogram for you. Labels should be unchecked. If you happen to have highlighted this word height, you can click labels. However, it won't put it on the right place on your graph, so there's really no point in doing it. We want to tell Excel where to put the results. There's two parts to the results for a histogram. There's a little chart or a little data table that's going to give us the bins, and it's going to give us the counts or the frequencies. So we need to click on this little dot, and then in the dialog box, when we get a blinking cursor, we can click on a cell in the table where there's some room below it and to the right. And we want a graph. We're doing this because we want a histogram, the actual graph. So we also need to click chart output. If we don't click that, it doesn't give us a graph. Now, if you forget to click on output range, its automatic default is new workbook. So if you click OK and it doesn't look like anything happened, look at the bottom and see if there's a new tab down there, and your results might be on that tab. But you can always just go back and redo it so that it's where you want it to be. When I click OK, I get this pop up. I have this table, this bin. All right, these are the left-hand edges of my bins. And then how many observations I have in each of those bins. All right, I'm going to make my histogram a little bigger. All right. So how Excel automatically makes the histogram is not how a typical scientific or especially biological histogram should look. First of all, histogram, we know it's a histogram. That's clutter. We're going to delete it. The legend frequency, we're just going to click on it. So we get those little balls that tell us it's highlighted. We're going to delete it. We don't need a legend on this graph because we only have one kind of data. If there were two kinds of data, we'd need a legend. We only have one. All right, there's a couple goofy things here. Now, a histogram should have its bars touching because what we have done is we have sliced up the x-axis into evenly spaced sections, and we've counted up how many observations fall in each section. We want to reflect that our x-axis is continuous by showing the bars touching one another. So I've clicked on one of my bars. It's showing me the whole data series is highlighted. Now I'm going to right click and go to Format Data Series. This gives me my format menu on the right-hand side here. And it is showing this one with the graph, the little histogram looking graph at the top. If it happens to show up on the paint can or this pentagon, that's not where you want to be. You want to go to the one that looks like a histogram. And we have gap width. The first thing we're going to do is take this little slider and slide it down. Now, when it goes to 0, all of our bins kind of blur together. So it's actually kind of nice if we put a little 1% gap between our bars, and then that shows a differentiation between them. So that's a nice way to quickly do that. Default color on my installation is blue. All of our scientific graphs, we want to actually make a plain color. So the paint can, the fill is what's in the middle of those objects. And so we can go to the color on the Format Data Series, the fill in line, the fill, change it from blue to kind of a medium gray. That's always easy to see. All right, now doesn't that look nice? All right, there's a couple other things we want to fix on our histogram. We have all kinds of crazy digits on our x-axis. We don't have that many digits in our data, so we don't want to show that many digits. Excel uses an algorithm to slice up the x-axis, and it divides in order to find it. So that's why we have lots of digits. We also have this word here, more. There should be a number value here. All right, we're going to figure out what that is. And then the x-axis label, it says bin. Now, what should it say? It should say what we measured, right? And if we were smart, we typed it into our data table. What did we measure? This is plant height. These are mustard seedlings. So plant height in centimeters. Oops, H-E-I-G-H-T and centimeters. All right. Now, we have to fix these number values and this more on our data table. We fix it on the data table, it'll fix it on the graph. Let's do the more first, right? What should the more be? Well, it should be larger than this last value. So first we're going to type in equals. That is going to mean Excel will do a calculation here. So we're going to take that highest value that we have in the previous bin. And then we're going to say, I want to add to it the difference between any two of my bins. All right, so I'm going to put a paren there. You don't actually need it, but just to make clear what I'm doing, I'm going to take my second bin at this 1.6. I'm going to click on it or tap it, and now it puts D5, that cell, into my formula. I'm going to say D5 minus D4, and I'm going to use a closed paren so you can see what I'm doing. I could take the difference between any two of these bins. They're all the same. And I'm going to add that to the size of my highest bin. When I click enter, it'll give me the number that should be on that last bin. I don't know why Excel does this. Okay. Now we want to fix all these digits. So we're going to highlight all of those bin numbers in our little table. And we want to format those cells. We need to go back to the home menu to do that. And we have these handy little tools at the top. We can decrease the number of decimal places, which is what we're going to do. We want to have it match our data. So most of our data has 2 decimal places. So we sort of decrease them from all kinds of goofy ones to 1, but I want to increase it 1 more. All right, now we have this beautiful histogram. Our bins are touching. We have even number of digits across all of our bars. Our x-axis is labeled, y-axis is labeled, and we should be very proud of this histogram. All right, advanced level skills. Next thing you might want to do, or a professor might ask you to do, is instead of using the bins that Excel gives you, right, these are kind of awkward numbers, 1.98. Why don't we have 2? Why don't we have 2.0? Well, it's because Excel uses this algorithm and calculates it. But we as thinking scientists may say, you know what, I really would like to have my bins. I want to have 2. I want to have 1.5, 1.0. That should catch them all. And then 2.5, 3.0, 3.5, and 4.0. So that should cover the range of values that I have. I'm going to format my cells so that they all have the same number of digits. 1.0, 1.5, 2.0, 2.5, 3.0, 3.5, 4.0. Now I can remake the histogram with these bins that I've set up ahead of time. Right? So if you want to set the edges of the bins, you can. And but you have to type them out ahead of time. So this will be 1 or 2 less bins than my first histogram. I'm going to shrink that guy down a little. All right. Well, now we're going to make our histogram a second time. You have to go back to the data tab, click on the data analysis, click on histogram. Now it'll still have the input range here that we put in before. If we didn't change anything, we can leave it there. What is different is I'm going to do the bin range. So I'm going to click my cursor in there. Now I'm going to highlight my little table of my bins. And I do need to change my output range because I don't want to have it overwrite the one that I did previously. So I'm just going to click a little bit further down and to the right. So I've got plenty of room for that. I still want it to chart my output. And when I click OK, I'm going to get a second histogram. All right, so really quickly, I'm going to make this one pretty. It looks a little different. It's a little more normally distributed. It has fewer bins, so that is often going to be the case. But I have these nice tidy edges compared to my bins compared to the first one. So once you get the hang of making these corrections to the histogram, you can do it really fast. It's kind of a hassle. So if anybody from Excel is watching my video, you know, why do you have histograms made this way, which is basically wrong. So it would be nice, Excel people, if you fixed that. So I'm just going to delete this bin this time. In a perfect world, I would go back and remake this so that I didn't have an empty bin here, but this actually looks fine. And now I have a histogram that I have made with the bin edges that I decided I wanted to set at those particular locations. All right. Excel does a pretty good job of setting the bin edges. And usually the histogram that it makes for you is going to be fine. If you have a particular reason that you want to have it showing particular bin edges, you can always remake it. But I always let Excel make it first, and then I decide what I'm going to do. All right, so now you should be able to make beautiful histograms so that you can investigate the distribution of your quantitative variables.